What's up guys, my name's Brandon and today Apple released iOS 17.0.3 for all devices, and this is going to be a pretty big update if you are facing any type of overheating issues, whether you're on an iPhone 15 or any other device on iOS 17. So if we take a look at the size for this update, it came in at around 423 megabytes on my iPhone 15 Pro, which was coming from 17.0.2. And if we take a look at the build number for this update, it's 21A360, and if we go down to the modem firmware, that is 1.00.03. Okay, so now let's talk about what's new with iOS 17.0.3, and it seems like every single week we're getting a new software update. It's crazy, but you could not go anywhere on the internet for the past couple of weeks without hearing about the iPhone 15 overheating. Some people even reported that their brand new phones got so hot that they would just simply shut down, and this is like a day after they bought it. But this update should end all of that because Apple has addressed the overheating issue with iOS 17.0.3, and they actually mention it in the release notes. And I cannot recall the last time Apple mentioned the word, run warmer than expected, or like mention any type of, reference to overheating or our phones getting hot. It's very rare for them to actually mention that. So that was a surprise there. And something to keep in mind here is that Apple does not call out the iPhone 15 specifically. It just says that may cause iPhone to run warmer than expected. So I would assume that this not only applies to the iPhone 15 and that you could also see a, kind of temperature decrease no matter what device you're on if you were having any type of overheating issues after installing iOS 17. Now, me personally, I have not had any type of overheating on any of my devices. I have the iPhone 15 Pro, I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I have multiple iPhone 15s, and I've really tried to kind of replicate this overheating issue that everybody's talking about, but I could not do it. So I will be doing a temperature check here. I will be updating one of my iPhone 15s and using this thermal imaging camera here to see if there is any difference in heat. And of course, I will report back to you guys in a future video. But so far, I'm not really telling a big difference. I can't really tell a big difference just from holding the phone after updating, which I didn't expect to, but this should fix that issue for those that were facing this issue. Now, I will say that if this update does not fix overheating for you, there have also been videos that show and kind of prove that Instagram could actually be the culprit for this whole iOS 17, iPhone 15 overheating issue. And maybe it wasn't an issue with the iPhone 15 hardware. It was just the Instagram app after all. And it's more related to the actual account on the Instagram, application, which I will link that video in the description below if you want to see that. But I will say that ever since I started switching over to using Instagram in my Safari web browser or just on my desktop computer, I've noticed that my device not only, gets better battery life, but it also does not heat up as much. So if this update in general does not fix that overheating issue for you, you may just want to kind of avoid Instagram for a while until they sort this out. And there's also another reason that this update was not pushed out just for the iPhone 15 series, and that's because we do have some security patches in this update, and one of them is actually pretty important. So first off, we have this WebRTC bug that has been patched, and it says the impact is a buffer overflow may result in arbitrary code execution. But the important one here is this kernel bug where it says the impact is a local attacker may be able to elevate their privileges, and that Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited against versions of iOS before iOS 16.6. So this bug, this exploit was being used out in the wild, and that was not fixed, that was not addressed until iOS 17.0.3. So just keep that in mind as well. Always a good reason to update. Oh, and if you're wondering if iOS 17.0.3 brings back the custom ringtones under the ringtones and the text tones section, it does not. They are still missing here in 17.0.3. Now they did return in iOS 17.1 beta 2, so we should see those custom ringtones return in the iOS 17.1 update, but unfortunately they are still not back in 17.0.3. Now, as far as any type of performance improvements, I would not expect anything whatsoever to change in terms of performance on iOS 17.0.3. I would expect this to remain pretty much exactly the same as iOS 17 and iOS 17.0.2. 17.2, which you probably updated from. But as far as the battery life goes, battery life could actually see an improvement here with iOS 17.0.3. So if you were not getting good battery life, this update could resolve that. And you guessed it, it's because of the overheating issues potentially being resolved. Because as you guys know, as I've talked about many times here on the channel, the number one enemy of your battery is heat. And if we have a reduction in heat, that means that we should have an improvement in battery life. So, and earlier I did say that I could not tell a difference in my device. It still felt, the same as always, but I will say, and this could be placebo, so I will report on this again, later this weekend and next week, but my device feels like cool to the touch. It feels really cool right now. Like not even a hint of warmness is coming from my iPhone 15 Pro. So again, that could be placebo, and I will let you guys know in an update if it's actually getting cooler, and I will do that test. But so far it feels pretty good, and I would expect that to potentially slightly improve battery life if you were having battery drain issues. Now, I did also want to talk about what to expect next from Apple, because ever since we got iOS 17 released in mid-September, we've had 17.0, 17.0.1, 17.0.2, and now 17.0.3, and we also have the iOS 17.1 betas going on right now for beta testers. So a lot of updates have been pushed out, and you might be wondering, are we going to see a 17.0.4? And I would say that's not completely out of the question. I mean, we could see that in the next coming weeks. However, that is not a guarantee. The only guarantee is that we will see an iOS 17.1, most likely at the end of October, potentially on the week of the 23rd, or right there on October 30th, the day before Halloween. And that new 17.1 update will include quite a few new features, changes, and bug fixes. So that is something to look forward to. And then if you're wondering if you should update to iOS 17.0.3 or not, I would say this is an absolute no-brainer, especially if you had any type of overheating issues. And I think anytime that Apple mentions the words, may cause iPhone to run warmer than expected, like I said earlier, that is something very rare. Apple does not really say things like that in their release notes. They don't like to kind of admit things like that or kind of put that out there for everybody to see. So with that being said, I think that pretty much everybody should go ahead and update to 17.0.3 for that reason alone. But the security fixes on top of that, especially including one that had been actively exploited, I think it's a pretty easy decision to go ahead and update to 17.0.3. Now, I will say if you're on the 17.1 betas, of course, you cannot get 17.0.3 because you're already on 17.1, which comes after 17.0.3. However, this fix right here, the fix to fix the overheating, that should come in the next iOS 17.1 beta, potentially even the one after that, but it will be there eventually in 17.1 as well. So that is iOS 17.0.3. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know in a comment down below if this fixes your overheating issues. Since I wasn't facing this issue myself on any of my devices, it's really hard for me to say if it has been fixed or not. Like I said, I will run a test, just in case maybe my hands are just like burnt and I can't actually feel when phones are getting hot. If that's the case or whatever the case may be, I will run a test and see if I can tell a difference in temperature between 17.0.2 and 17.0.3, but I'm also relying on you guys to tell me your experience as well, because my experience may not be the same as everybody else's. So anyways, looking forward to reading your comments down there in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe for a lot more iOS 17 and iPhone 15 coverage. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.